When you hear the word auditor, I bet a specific image pops into your head, right? Someone with a clipboard, maybe a pair of glasses, just looking for what went wrong. But that whole stereotype, it's getting a massive update. We're going to talk about how internal audit is shifting from just looking in the rearview mirror to actually helping steer the car.
So let's frame this with a question. Look, finding problems is one thing, but who's there to help build the solutions? Who acts as that internal guide, that partner that helps management build better, stronger, more efficient systems from the get-go? Well, that's exactly where the modern internal auditor comes in.
All right, so let's get into it. We're about to flip the script on what you thought an auditor was. We're leaving the world of simple checklists behind and diving into something way more dynamic, the auditor as a strategic advisor.
At the heart of all this are what we call advisory services. Now, the most important part of that definition is the last bit, without taking on management responsibilities. This is key. The auditor brings all their expertise to the table to help out, but they aren't the ones making the final decisions. They're kind of like expert consultants that are already built right into the company.
This is probably the best way to think about it. On the left, you've got traditional assurance services. That's the auditor as a referee. Their job is to watch the game, make sure everyone follows the rules, and give a formal opinion. Was it a foul or not? But now, look at the right side, advisory services. This is the auditor as a coach. The coach works with the team before the big game, helping them improve, strategizing, and offering guidance. The scope isn't just about rules. It's about what the team, management, wants to work on to get better.
And this coaching isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. It can be a very formal, planned-out project with a signed agreement, or it can be super informal, like an auditor just sitting in on a committee to offer their perspective. It could be for huge special events, like a merger, or even pop up in an emergency, like helping the company get back on its feet after a disaster. The point is, it's flexible.
Okay, but wait a minute. This brings up a really important question, doesn't it? If an auditor is coaching the team, how can they still be an impartial referee later on? How do you give advice without losing your objectivity and the trust that comes with it?
Well, there are some serious guardrails in place to make sure this works. This isn't just a casual thing. First, the board of directors has to be on board and give their official approval. The internal audit charter, which is like the rule book for the whole department, is formally updated. And there are very clear policies to guide how these advisory jobs work, specifically to avoid any conflicts of interest.
And here's one of the biggest rules of them all, a cooling-off period. Generally speaking, if an auditor provides formal advice on a particular area, they can't then turn around and perform a formal assurance audit, the referee job, on that same area for at least 1 full year. This separation is absolutely crucial for maintaining objectivity.
The process itself is pretty straightforward, and it's all about teamwork. It all starts with planning, where the auditors and management sit down together and agree on what they're trying to achieve. Then comes the perform phase, where the auditors do their thing, gathering info and analyzing it. And finally, they communicate what they found and what they recommend. See, it's a partnership from beginning to end.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. Now for the fun part. Let's open up the auditor's toolkit and see some of the specific ways they can add some serious value.
One of the most powerful tools in that kit is something called benchmarking. And this isn't just about seeing how you stack up against your direct competitor. It's about finding who is the absolute best in class at doing a certain thing, even if they're in a completely different industry, and then figuring out how you can learn from them. And what's so cool about this is you can benchmark pretty much anything you can measure. How many days does it take your finance team to close the monthly books? What percentage of your customers are truly satisfied? How much inventory goes bad on the shelf? By comparing your numbers to the world's best, you can uncover these huge opportunities for improvement you might never have seen otherwise. But this is a real process, It's not just about grabbing a number. It's a structured journey. You start by picking the right projects, then you get the right people on your team. Then comes the deep dive research to find those best-in-class examples. After that, you analyze not just the gap in performance, but why the gap exists. And finally, you actually implement the changes needed to close that gap. All right, that's enough theory for now. Let's make this real. We're going to walk through a couple of actual scenarios where these advisory services can be a total game changer. Okay, have a look at this. It's a process map for something we all deal with, paying an invoice. By laying out every single step visually, you can immediately spot where things might be getting stuck. You see the flow? The invoice comes in, it gets checked, but see that loop where it flags a possible duplicate bill? That kicks off a whole separate investigation.
That could be a massive bottleneck that's holding everything up. A map like this makes those hidden problems totally visible.
And you don't make a map just to have a cool-looking flowchart. The whole point is to do something called business process reengineering. That's a fancy way of saying you look at that map and start asking some tough questions. Do we really need this step? Can a computer do this part for us? The goal is to hunt down and get rid of any work that doesn't actually add value.
Now, let's talk about a really high-stakes situation, a big merger or acquisition. This is where an auditor, as an advisor, is priceless. They perform what's called due diligence. They go in and look at everything, not just the financial statements, but the other company's day-to-day operations, their IT systems, their legal compliance, and even something as squishy but critical as whether the two company cultures will actually get along. Getting this wrong can be a disaster, and the auditor is there to spot the red flags.
So let's just zoom out for a second and think about the big picture here. Why is this whole shift from inspector to advisor so incredibly important?
So much of it comes down to being proactive instead of reactive. Think about it. You're building a huge new IT system for the company. If you bring an auditor in at the beginning, as an advisor, they can help make sure that crucial things like security controls are built into the system from day one. That is so much smarter and way cheaper than trying to fix problems after the system is already built and breaking down.
And this quote from the material we're looking at just nails it. It's all about adding incremental value and becoming a trusted business advisor. That's the end game. It's about transforming a department that was seen as just a cost center into a true partner that helps the business succeed.
So I'll just leave you with this one last thing to think about. What about your own organization? Is your internal audit team acting like a historian, just writing down what already happened? Or are they acting like an architect, helping to design and build a better, stronger future? The potential for them to be that architect is right there, waiting to be unlocked.